a mix match hash spat of all the things that I didn't cover. Because, when I start talking for some odd 20 minutes and I cover so many topics, I tend to forget a few. So I've looked back and I've made notes and I'm doing a rerun. We're getting back to the oldies. Talk about the timeline. I got a few things that I didn't cover because I thought they might be in a advanced timeline thing, but there's only a few of them, so I'm just gonna do them now. Here we go. So, this thing I was talking about, I said don't use it. I'm never gonna use it ever, but here's what it does. If you tick this button, then you get these options. These will just change how far up your brackets are from your cursor. So that's just same as doing it by hand. This will make your brackets stay where they are when you click it on. So like, now if I move it, these are still here. I can move them, but they'll just always be here if you anchor them. I don't use it, but you might like it. Then this other one, it shows these markers even if you don't have onion skin on. So like, you can see them right now, and this is on, tick it off, you can still see them. Look at how it changes what's behind there. That means onion skin is enabled and disabled. So yeah, that's that little tick box. Now, in your programs, like file menu, this whole thing, your drop downs, you have 3 places you can do timeline stuff. It's or maybe it's just 2. I think it might be. Or no, there's 3. Edit timeline lets you do stuff like cutting frames and pasting frames. Modify timeline, this lets you do kind of advanced timeline stuff. And the same thing as hitting F6 when you have a bunch of frames selected, and then there's timeline effects. That's an entire abyss where you can have like preset things that are like tweens that already have color attributes to them, and you have to like download them. And then there's control, and this is where you do a lot of stuff like testing your scene, your movie, going forward and backward a frame, that's comma period, playing, rewinding, and going to certain frames. So I'm gonna do it with my keyboard and whatnot here. If you're in the timeline and then you hold control, and this is only if you're using a mouse, you can, if you're holding shift, you can scroll. This is holding shift and scrolling through frames, just like this. I don't use it because my hand is never on my mouse, but if you're a mouse animator, use this to your advantage. It's really great. Otherwise, use the comma and period, or remap those to wherever you want. Almost there, almost to that one. So that's that. If you want to watch your whole animation, then you would go Control Test Movie, or just hit Control Enter. That is the default keyboard shortcut. And then it'll open up a new SWF version of your .fla, and it'll loop over and over until you close the window, or you right click to access Shockwave controls and you tick off the play button. Then it would stop. And there's a lot of stuff you can do in here, like zooming, showing everything, changing the quality. You can go to the first frame, the last. Well, these aren't really the first frame and last theoretically. It's the next action. So when you export a Shockwave thing, it defaults, if you have no play buttons or anything, the first frame and last frame to be where that would put it. But like if you had a stop command halfway through and you hit forward right now, it would jump to the next stop command. But that's ActionScript, and that's something else which you might want to get into. And so now it would go back to the beginning, and then you hit play again to watch it. Yep, that was Control Enter to test your movie. If you're in here, you just hit Enter to play through, and then it'll show you what you want to see. Okay, other timeline stuff. Look in here. So when I right click, I did all of these, and I did these, but there's these two options, and then there's one more that does certain things. If you select some frames, and then you right click those frames and hit reverse frames, and you can do this for any layers, like you could select 20 different layers, and then this same amount of frames left and right, and then go reverse frames, and it'll just flip all keyframes. And if there are no keyframes to flip, like if it's in the middle of something, then it's kind of hard to. It treats this as one big frame, so it's replacing the first ones. So if you want to get nice results, start your selection where you want, like all the way through your keyframe blocks. Anyway, so now this is reversed, backwards, forwards, right there. That's what reverse frames does. Pretty helpful for a few things, like when you're doing anticipation on some certain effects. We'll get into it. And then there is synchronized symbols. This is for tweens, and I don't use it. I barely even understand it. But like, if you have a tween and you tick this off, I think it's the same as right-clicking and turning off sync symbols. It has to do with if halfway through your tween you want to replace your thing that's being tweened with something else. I might talk about it when I do tweens, but it's not super important, I don't think. I don't know, maybe Flash would get super easy if I started doing it. Who knows? There's always stuff to learn. Okay, we're going to talk about enabling things. So I told you that you could do this, this, and this, just here. But if you've got multiple layers, like these, and you want to do both of these, you can do two things. You can click and drag down, and it will get both of them. Works for everything. Or you can click any of these, and it will just put it on all layers. So like, there. It'll make all layers invisible. And if some are already invisible, it will just add to it. It takes the most, like, how can I say this? Unless everything is invisible, if there's even one thing that is visible, it will always just make anything invisible that it can, because that's what it's trying to do. The only way that it will make everything visible is if everything is already invisible. Just like that. Same thing goes for lock. There you go. And same for outline. It's just these icons here. Also, when you change this to short, these will change. Watch. They get little. It's just to save space. They do the exact same thing. Yeah. That's how to do that. And one thing I didn't mention, that I guess I think is obvious, but may not be clear right off the bat, the way that the timeline works in general and your scene works is stuff that is above other things in the timeline is above things in your scene. So this red square it's the top, the tip as it goes. So no matter what, you will never see anything in front of this red square. I'm gonna make it purple. Because it is the highest up timeline in your list of highest up layer in your list of layers. So if I put something on a layer below it, it will absolutely show up below it. But above my animation, because the blue is higher up than these frames. Yeah, that's how that works. Okay, I want to tell you about distributing to layers. I did these two. Now, I use this when I'm doing like 60 things that are all moving at the same time. If you've got a bunch of dots and you need to like animate them all individually, you can just select all of these, right click any one of them, and then hit distribute to layers. And it's gonna make like a layer for each one of these right in here. Now they've all got their own layer, and it's super easy to work with them one by one. And if they are symbols, so like if some of them were symbols and I put them all on one layer, I just cut them and pasted them in place, I'm going to do the distribute to layers again. What it'll do is it'll see the ones that are symbols and it'll make their layer names their symbol name. See? And I guess it prioritizes symbols above just shapes, so it'll put all your symbols at the top and your shapes on bottom. That is the distribute to layers function, and I think you can only get it by right-clicking stuff out here or going up to modify timeline distribute to layers. Yeah, pretty helpful for like when you want to have something explode but you just are going to use motion tweens. Okay, by the way, if you want to make a motion tween, even though you may not even know how yet, something has to be a symbol, which we're not even there yet, but you right-click in your timeline and create a motion tween. And if you want it to be a shape tween, you don't do that. You go to tween while the layer is selected, and you go shape. Yep. Okay, we did the syncing. Okay, so I talked about how you might extend frames universally like this. So it's extending, I'm hitting F5, it's extending all the layers under my cursor's position. But maybe I don't want that. Maybe I just want my animation to go longer, and I want this blue line to disappear. And to quickly and easily do that, you just select the keyframe block that you want to be extending on the layer you want it to be extending, and don't select anything else. And then your cursor will ignore anything except for what is selected. Just like that. It'll push those out, but it won't push these out. You can do those individually, and then you can, nothing is selected, just do everything universally, or you can do like 6 at a time, individually, or maybe just these two, or maybe in increments of 1. Yeah. And you can also get rid of lots of frames on multiple layers, or just the one layer. Just like that. That was my remove frames hotkey. I'm not doing any magic. Alright, okay, we're moving right along. You know, I talked about the magnifying tool. I did every way of zooming except for holding Control and Shift and zooming. I'm pretty sure that's what it is, but I'm not. That might be just mine, but maybe it's just Control Zoom or Control Scroll. But I'm holding Control Shift and scrolling, and that is working for me. Okay, also, and then if you're in your timeline and you hold Control and you scroll, remember Shift and scroll in your timeline? If it would work, what is happening? What? I guarantee that this is a thing. What is going on? Oh boy. Flash, you're making a fool out of me. Well, no, I can't. You know what? you can try it out. I did it earlier in this video, but if you hit Control and then you scroll, it'll jump to the last frame in the first frame. That's holding down Control, scrolling up and down. I promise it does. It doesn't do it right now for some odd reason. Flash 8. You got a few bugs. Maybe we should send in some bug reports. Have Adobe fix up Macromedia Flash 8. Next, I want to go over the eraser, because I missed one thing. If you've got your shape here, and you go to your eraser or hit E, you can erase like nobody's business. But if you just want to do the same thing as clicking with the selection tool and then deleting, there is the faucet option. This is in your eraser options, and it is called faucet. You get it, and then it does this. And if there were shapes connected, that were the same color, then faucet is on, this is eraser, it would grab those two. But it wouldn't if it was a different color, because that wouldn't select it if you just clicked it and hit delete. See? There it goes. Faucet option. It's great for deleting like a bunch of tiny things really fast. I did syncing. Ah, yes. Alright, okay. So I talked about color in some level of detail. I did not go into much depth about gradients, so I'm going to cover that for a couple minutes. If you've got a shape, this has no fill. This has no outline, just fill. And I've got it, and I want this to be a gradient. I want it to go blue to orange. Well, there's two ways to get there. You can change your color like you normally would, and go down to a default swatch that is a gradient. I think in the default color layout there at the bottom. And I'll just grab white to black for the fill, and then it'll put that in there. And you'll see something new in your color mixer that you may not have seen before, and that is this. Normally, when you have just normal colors, this bar isn't here, and it just looks like a solid block. But with linear or radial gradients, you get this extra bar for controlling your gradient. Now remember, also with your your gradient transform, you can control it like this. Talked about that already, and this is just another way to work with it. See, it changes whatever gradient is selected. It's got to be selected. It can either be selected with the selection tool, the free transform tool, or the gradient transform tool. And then it'll do whatever you want. If you want to add a color onto here, just go anywhere where there's not already a color and click and change it to what you like. Now it's going white to blue to black. And you can slide these around by clicking in the square and moving them. You can get rid of them by holding Control, and little scissors will show up, and you can snip those away. But it doesn't ever apply removing things. So like, if you've got this selected and you want to get rid of the blue, you have to first change it and then reselect it. Like here. Right now this is selected and there is white on there. But if I just clip this and I go out here, the white is still there. And it's just mess with it. And if you want to make things move over other things, you can do that. Nothing is ever in front of anything or anything else. Ignore the beeps. And then up in here in the color mixer, you can change your type of gradient to radial, just like that. And whatever is on the left in this little box will be inside, and this is outside. So you can use that to change the way yours looks. Like maybe you got a situation like this going on, and then this is all inside of the square. Yep, gradients. They're really quite nice. A very commonly used gradient is something like black to black with no alpha. And then you get this, and you can put stuff behind it that will fade off to nothingness. Yeah. And the way you change the gradient color is you just either double click this box and get your color you want, or click it and then in your color mixer grab what you want, or in your swatches grab what you want, and it'll work right out for you. Now, with gradients, they can only be applied to one shape. So say, maybe you had the word cool, and it needed to look cool, needed to look the part. Break it apart so it's a fill, like we do with text, and make it big with free transform. Hold Alt to do it from the center. Now, you want all of these letters to have a cool gradient going up. So you build your gradient, you go linear, you make it sweet, you're going to have it be pink on the end, and orange in the middle, and then it'll be salmon at the other end. So you go in, and you want it the other way. So you would either use this to click and rotate it the other way, or if you just have your paint bucket tool, and this only works with paint bucket, you can click inside of a fill and drag, and it will change the direction of it based on how far you drag. It'll change the size too. It's kind of like using the gradient transform tool ahead of time. Anyway, what I'm saying is you can't apply it to all of these equally unless you turn on lock fill. Oh boy. Flash. We're using lock fill now. People who actually know how to use lock fill are just... they're laughing right now because they know how to do it. Lock fill. I've done it before. I promise you. Oh, wait. Yes? Yes. Okay. You just keep clicking into the next shape you want the gradient to be in, and then this gradient transform tool will treat all the letters together as one big shape in which you can edit the gradient as a whole, so it'll work just like that. You don't ever actually need to use this lock fill function. It was kind of finicky there, and a quick workaround is, say all of these are red. If you just select all of these at the same time, they're selected with the selection tool, and then you change it to a gradient, or not that, if you select them and then you fill, lock fill doesn't have to be on, I promise. They're all this color, you select them, fill tool, change it to a linear, all okay, there. Lock fill isn't on and it's doing the same thing. So that's that. Gradients. Done talking about it. Moving on to the other things that I forgot. Sounds. Sounds. Let me show you. So I'm not going to do a sounds tutorial right now. I'm just going to drop a sound in so you can see what happens. To make a sound happen in your timeline, you need to have a frame for it to start on and room for it to play out, so long as it's stream audio. And stream is the best. Don't use event for animations because it messes things up. Unless you have a really long song, it might get syncing issues unless you use event. But stream is just always better because you can look at the waveform. I'll show you. Let me make this normal height. Now if you click where you want your sound to start, and you've imported your sound by going File, Import to Library, and then grab your sound. Flash likes MP3s and dot waves. MP3s only work sometimes. Dot waves always work no matter what. You can either click here, drag it out to the stage, drag it out. No, you can't do that. You gotta drag it to the stage. Or you can click here and drag it. And then, there it is. It gives you a waveform. It's blue in this version. Sometimes it's orange in the later ones. Or no, purple maybe in like CS2 and whatnot. And then if it's stream, if you click on it and the properties it says it's stream, then you will be able to listen to it. And there it is. All for you to have your audio. And you can have like multiple layers where there's lots of sounds happening one after the other. You can cut them off after one frame and it might sound like that. Anyway, sound is another tutorial. So I'm gonna just get rid of these. Yeah! Okay, I didn't make it very clear, but there are two kinds of guides. There are motion guides, and then there are guide layers. Guide layers are things that don't show up when you hit Control-Enter to test your movie. They're just for you to work with in your workspace. And then there's motion guides, which are for tweens, and those will be talked about later. It's for doing motion tweens that look like that things move in like circular paths or arcs. Yep. Good. Almost done. Last thing is masks. So in Flash, you have the option to masks, to mask, and to use masks. So think about it like this. In your layers, things that are on top, like, show up above other things. So say you've got a mask going on, right? And you drew this awesome shape, but you need to have it be a different, like, color, and you don't want to go in and color it all yourself. So what Flash offers you is the ability to take your mask and take the stuff you want it to be colored as, like, I don't know, something that looks really good, where you've got squigglies and you've spent time on it, and it would be painstaking to go in and put this behind that. Now let's put that purpley. Yeah. You can just take your mask, put it in front, and then right-click the layer that's on top, the mask, turn it into a mask, and it will automatically grab the layer that's underneath it. If there is no layer underneath it, then it'll look like that. But if there is one, it'll do that. And then you have masked. And it's super helpful for complex effects. Maybe you've got yourself a globe situation going on, and you want to mask off the world. It's also really helpful for if you want to do like a slow-mo shockwave on an explosion. You would just duplicate whatever was going on in the animation, and then off-kilter it by a little bit, and you got a sweet-looking shockwave, where it's like a distortion line. Okay, so say this is Earth, and this is the stuff that's on Earth. You can make it a fantastic green color, and make the ocean blue. And then you mask it off using this circle, and you get this. Oh. And things can operate independent of their masks, so you could have this spinning, and you could get a spinning planet, and you already saw my demo of it in the earlier thing, so you know what this is going to look like, but, sells the effect pretty doggone good. And you could have this coming in from far away, and maybe spinning while it's spinning. Yeah. Make it space colored. Yeah, you can have it spin the other direction. Like it starts like this. Masks are good. So there you have it. I mean, I think I've done it all. Just looking through. Yeah. You know what? Anything I haven't, I'll talk about later. Hey, this has been the Tidbits, and hopefully now a few things have been cleared up. Maybe things you're wondering about are still unclear, and just ask away. Ask a question, and I'll answer it, and then you'll have your response. Magic.